Well, hello, friends and kin. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope the spirit of the Hallows season is being good to you and yours. To continue our exploration of John O'Donohue's Anamkara. Today, I'm enjoying a pipe of GL Pieces Hadou's Delight, one of my favorite 10 tobaccos. There's something about this time of year, and indeed going into the winter, that makes me crave my pipe more. Never really understood that, but it's a thing. Where we left off in the previous section, Mr. John was talking about connecting with the cyclical patterns of our immediate space. And throughout the course of my journey, I've noticed that things like the wheel of the year is something people debate over a lot, and sometimes for good reasons, sometimes mm, I would put it under the category of debating semantics. And it's at that point, it's really just comes across to me like people trying to one up each other with their level of knowledge and trying to prove whose interpretation is superior. Not necessarily which one is right, but which one is superior. But that's another story for another time. Uh, when it comes to being able to connect with the cyclical patterns of your immediate environment, I don't think you have to become any kind of environmental scholar. A lot of it just boils down to sitting down and observing the changes in your immediate bioregion. That starts with learning what your bioregion is. What's the what kind of soil do you have? What are the native plants to the area? And in some parts of the world, that's a very interesting journey to go down because you start figuring out a lot of the trees and plants that you've seen all your life uh, could very well be part of invasive species that have just settled into the area. And sometimes that's a bad thing. I think more often than not, it's more of a neutral thing. Either way, one of the things that I firmly believe with all of my heart, and I know I'm derailing not reading the book, but it's one of the beautiful things about these talks of ours. We can really derail as much as the situation calls for. But back to bioregions and things like invasive species and learning about the history of the flora and fauna of your area, their behavior patterns, and the weather patterns, because not everybody's got a summer and winter like we do where I live. The seasons look different in different places, and sometimes there ain't a whole lot of change between summer and winter in some of the more extreme environments of the world, but shifts there are, and shifts you will experience in some way, shape, or form. And tuning into those sorts of things will deepen your relationship with your immediate bioregion as well as the spirits that inhabit it. And so, for anybody pursuing uh, these types of sorcerous arts or a paganish religious and spiritual practice, I really do feel like that should be one of the foundational elements, connecting with your bioregion as exactly the way our ancestors had to. And it's really just a way of trying to live within a closer relationship to the sky and the earth as you perceive them. All that being said, when it comes down to the history of the flora and fauna, and we look at invasive species of animals and plants, one thing I believe in stronger than any other conviction that I have is that nature is far older and more powerful than really much of anything we're capable of doing. Now, humans are capable, especially now, we're capable of quite the feats of destruction. But nature has overcome things far more powerful than us. And I trust in that. And when invasive species of plants and animals are introduced into a habitat, which that phenomenon's been occurring since long before humanity started walking upright, uh, nature has a way of equalizing and adapting. And sometimes there's some devastation up front, but once the imbalance has presented itself, nature has a way of swinging the pendulum back the other direction to compensate. And then eventually, in the course of that momentum compensation, that pendulum swing, eventually, a type of balance is found until something else comes along to disrupt it, and the process starts all over again. And I believe this process is in a lot of ways comparable to what science would call evolution, or natural, or even natural selection in some instances. Cause and effect. Something happens, nature responds, and that response starts to calibrate until the most harmonious balance of elements is created, as can exist for that circumstance in that place and time in that moment. Again, until some other cause or stimulus occurs, requiring the calibration process to start over again. Or recalibration, maybe, is a better word. If you have better words to describe what I'm talking about, feel free to put them down in the comments. I'm always open to suggestion. Well, now getting on to the reading. That was fun. The world rests in the night. Right off the bat, this I don't know, the first few lines in this part we're going to talk about today are really fit the season well. The world rests in the night. Trees, mountains, fields, and faces are released from the prison of shape and the burden of exposure. Each thing creeps back into its own nature within the shelter of the dark. Darkness is the ancient womb. Nighttime is the womb time. Our souls come out to play. The darkness absolves everything. The struggle for identity and impression falls away. We rest in the night. The dawn is a refreshing time, a time of possibility and promise. All the elements of nature, stones, fields, rivers, and animals, are suddenly there anew in the fresh dawn light. Just as darkness brings rest and release, so does the dawn. So the dawn brings awakening and renewal. In our mediocrity and distraction, we forget that we are privileged to live in a wondrous universe. Each day the dawn unveils the mystery of this universe. Dawn is the ultimate surprise. It awakens us to the immense there-ness of nature. The wonderful subtle color of the universe arises to clothe everything. This is captured in a phrase from William Blake. Colors are the wounds of light. Colors bring out the depth of secret presence at the heart of nature. Whenever we enter dark times, which that is a very broad category of interpretation there of what a dark time is. Sometimes it's the autumn going into winter, where in my bioregion, things recede back into the earth, deciduous trees shed their leaves. Some animals start to go into hibernative states. After expending all this energy to procreate and mature through the spring and summer, now everything quiets down and it starts to rest. And that rest is like a revitalization. It's a time to recuperate that spent energy. And sometimes, well, and just as a byproduct of the process, death is also included in this energy. Almost all known life forms, anyway, with the exception of some very small microorganisms, all life forms reach a point where they've expended all the energy that their organic structure is capable of expending, and so it starts to shut down. And once it does shut down, the physical biological matter is either, if left to the devices of nature, is returned to the earth by way of decomposers, and then the energy that makes us who we are on a deeper level, if you want to call it that. There's so many different ways to look at this process, but whatever it is that makes us us on a deeper level also returns to its place of origin, there to be either recycled or renewed or given new form, continue its story in the next phase. I find comfort in that cycle. It appeases both my rational mind and my deeper intuitive understandings. But I think what Mr. O'Donohue is talking about should also be a stark reminder to us that every day we awake and behold the world as dawn illuminates it to us. It's a miraculous thing. We need that time of rest to do away with it helps us to do away with energies we don't need. We have that decision when we retire in the evenings to put away the stresses and the frustrations of the previous day and let them go into the dark. When we arise again, we don't have to pull them back out of the dark with us. That's a lesson I've had a hard time learning over the course of my life, so I know what I'm saying is easier said than done. But in these introductory passages from Mr. O'Donohue, he's preparing us for this journey that he's going to take us on to try to illustrate why life and its experiences are so miraculous. And it starts with that simple process of connecting ourselves with the cycles and rhythms of the natural world, and know that each time we experience one of these cycles, this is an ever unfolding miracle. That's the primer before we go deeper down the journey he wants to lead us on, of just appreciating the ever unfolding cycle of the great wheel is in and of itself a miracle. And when we can recapture a sense of wonder in that, just the unfolding of nature's patterns before us, just maybe, we'll start to be more open-minded to the miraculous elements that make us up as human beings. And that's a lifelong journey. And for my part, I know I've been on it for as long as I can remember, even well into my childhood, finding the miraculous in me. And it's not a journey where you have a definitive endpoint. You undertake it every day, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. And sometimes you have to put the more mystic elements of it down for a while to focus focus on more mundane matters that call to your attention, and that's okay. We are spirit beings inhabiting a fleshy meat suit that allows us to interface and interact with this miraculous manifested universe. And while our experiences as spirit beings are enlightening and empowering, we do have material needs too. We've got to eat. We've got to maintain our living spaces. And sometimes we feel like these things are take away from our spiritual journey, but they enable us to keep our flesh bags working, and that's certainly just as valid of an achievement too. So if you ever find yourself in that position where you've got to put the mystic quest down for a little while and deal with real world needs, don't ever hate yourself for that, or punish yourself for that. It's not your fault. We got to take care of the meat suits, because if we don't take care of the meat suits, then we can no longer interface with this miraculous, beautiful reality. So with all that being said, I definitely look forward to next Sunday and exploring more of Mr. O'Donoghue's thoughts. The next section, we're going to start going into belonging, which is probably one of the most powerful elements of this book, at least it was for me, because I didn't realize how much of my journey centered around my sense of loneliness. I think that's why so many of us go through these phases where, now not all of us do, but a decent number of us go through these phases where we want to build working groups of some kind, or build communities, or otherwise just make connections with other people, whether we're looking to find a single magical partner, or we want to be a part of a kindred grove, coven, whatever the heck you want to call it. We're looking for that sense of connection. And a lot of times that loneliness, which drives us to build these connections, can lead us to do things in some not so productive ways. And then we learn from experience, hopefully, if we're acquiring wisdom. But John O'Donoghue hits home with a lot of the psychological and emotional elements of this longing to belong and this need for companionship. And I think you'll enjoy his perspectives, and I will certainly enjoy exploring them with you. Until next time, friends and kin, have a wonderful week, and I'll see you soon.